Let me explain to you real fast how to get an emergency line of credit with low income. And the thing is that here is the takeaway. When you think about emergency line of credit, low income, you only have three ways where three places where you can get the money at your bank. So this could be your state or your local bank. This can be actually at your credit union, and finally at an online lender. Okay, so three places. Don't actually go for sometimes you can go for a payday loan provider. No. They're not going to give you the line of credit you need. You really need to actually go to your bank or to your credit union or to let's say to a specialized provider, if you will. It's really important to understand that when it comes to low income line of credit, you have to first understand what low income really means. Okay, low income actually will look at your application if you are making less than $1,000 a month. That's gross income. In other words, if you are making let's say $700 per month or $800 per month, and you want to have an emergency line of credit, then you will qualify. You will qualify for this line of credit. Okay. Now the thing is not just about how to get the line of credit. It's about how are you going to repay whatever you tap into, whatever money you actually tap into. So it's all about you getting. I mean, you can actually have an emergency line of credit for a low income that goes all the way to $10,000. You can have a line of credit for $10,000 maximum, but you have to be in a position where whatever you tap, you have to be able to pay it. The amounts actually will differ based on your relationship with the institution where you get the funds. So if you apply at your bank and you've been with the bank for a while, let's say you've been with the bank for 5 years or 6 years or 10 years for that matter, then you are more likely to get a larger line of credit amount. And the same thing is for your credit union. But if you have been with them for let's say 1 year, they will be less likely to give you 10 grand. They'll probably give you a 1,000 or 2,000 as a line of credit. Okay, so just remember that 1,000 is actually the maximum threshold to be considered low income. So when you actually are thinking about getting an emergency line of credit for a low income, ask yourself, do I qualify based on my revenue? So let me give you a few hacks here. How do you get an emergency line of credit for low income this year? The first thing you want to do here is to go back to, let's say, to square one, if you will. You want to go back to your credit score. You want to go back to your credit report. Because see, the thing is, we are focusing on low income, but we also have to focus simultaneously on your credit score. Because if you have low income, but you have a great credit score, let's say your credit score is around 750 or 800 for that matter, then you can qualify for better products, not just necessarily an emergency line of credit. You can even apply for a loan, regardless of the revenue, regardless of the salary you are pulling in every month. Okay, so you want to first make sure that you check your credit report and see if checking your credit report is not just about your credit score. It's also about making sure there are no issues, there are no problems, there are no derogatory items out there. There are erroneous, there are mistaken, there are actually not true, there are inaccurate. So check your credit report to make sure everything is fine. And you also want to make sure that you get a co-signer or a co-borrower. So if you're looking for an emergency line of credit for a low income, think about beefing up your credit score. So if your credit score is really low, if your credit score is really, really like very, if you are around 300 or you have no credit score for that matter, having a co-signer or co-borrower can really help you out. So you can have an emergency line of credit where you apply with a co-signer or co-borrower. So both of you will have access to the line of credit, by the way. So once the institution, the bank or credit union issues the line of credit, both of you will have access to the money. You can also ask for a smaller line of credit. So instead of asking for a 10 grand or 20 grand or 30 grand, you can just ask for a 5 grand or 3 grand for that matter. Remember, there should be a direct correlation between how much you're pulling in, your cash inflows, with how much you want to pull out, like your cash outflow, okay? You also want to lower your debt to income ratio if possible. So basically your DTI or your CUR, make sure that you are able to reduce how much debt you currently have. That way you can present a more amenable, you can have a more presentable picture to the lender. So let me give you a few considerations here. So when you think about emergency, line of credit, low income, how do you actually get things done real fast? It's important to understand that you want to understand a few things before you get into you get into the whole operation. Think about the income requirements. I've already established for you that you have to make a maximum income of $1,000 to actually per month to be considered low income. If you're making more, you're not really low income technically, okay? Even though some lenders might still consider you low income if they analyze your disposable income. Like you could be making a lot of money, but also have a huge amount of expenses. So your disposable income will play a big role in terms of categorizing you either as low income or high income or let's say middle class, if you will. You also have to pay attention to that. You want to look at the line of credit cost. Of course, you are looking for an emergency line of credit for a low income applicant, but you have to pay attention to the cost. Some line of credit lenders will charge you an origination fee. Some will charge you let's say an administrative fee. Okay, so but you also want to pay attention to the APR, how much they're charging you overall. That way, you have a clear idea what you're getting yourself into. You also want to pay attention to the repayment terms. So if you're looking for an emergency line of credit for low income, think about the repayment terms. I mean, most banks and credit unions are more flexible when it comes to repayment terms, and compared to online lenders. Okay, now you don't have a lot of online lenders that actually will give you a line of credit for emergencies, but you do have some. I'll speak about them later on. And so think about the repayment terms. And also, if there's an option to pre qualify, you always want to seize that option. So pre qualify is important. So pre qualify to make sure that you are getting the kind of loan that you want, but also the kind of line of credit you want. And also want to see what options are there, because when you pre qualify, not only are you protecting your credit, but you're also exploring the variety of options that the lender might actually have for applicants like you. So when you think about emergency line of credit for low income, what's the process here? Okay, the process is pretty simple, regardless of the states where you are at, the city and state where you are at. So it's one of those things where even though a banking is regulated at a state level, usually whether you are in California or New York or you are in Louisiana or Georgia or have you, you are basically always, if you're trying to really get an emergency line of credit low income, you always want to really understand that everything starts with your credit score, but also everything goes on from there, from your credit score. It goes through the pre-qualification step. Now, some banks do not have a pre-qualification step online, so that means you have to maybe go through the mobile app to actually to see if you can pre-qualify, or you have to go to a branch, or you have to call the bank or credit union. That you have to call the phone number and actually see if they can pre-qualify you. Okay, and so pre-qualification is really important because you always, I think I just said this a few minutes ago. You want to preserve your credit score, and you want to prepare your documents. Having low income doesn't mean that you have a low doc line of credit. Okay, it's a low income line of credit. It's a low income emergency line of credit, but it's not a low doc line of credit, which means you still need to present documents such as your tax returns, your financial statements in some cases, and you might also have to like affix to the application your bank statements. Okay, and also one thing you have to really understand is that some requirements might be different depending upon the lender, and that's why you have to really contact the lender. Now, when it comes to getting an emergency line of credit for low income, you might be funded like within 3 days, and but some banks will take up to 1 week to actually fund your emergency line of credit for low income. So the funding process will depend on the institution, but also will depend on the backlog of let's say of applications that they currently have to deal with. So it's one of those things where you have to understand that everything will work based on yeah based on the setup that you have. So let me talk to you about the lenders here. If you think about the emergency line of credit, low income, what kind of lenders can you really think about this year? Well, you have a lot of them though. I mean, some will give you a loan, like a regular loan. Some will give you actually a line of credit. So you have Universal Credit, for instance. You have Avant, you have Upgrade, you have Achieve, and you have also Best Egg. Now, let me explain. All those lenders that I just spoke to you, they are basically online lenders. They are fintechs, if you will, okay? But don't forget that you always want to start with your traditional bank. You want to start with your traditional credit union. You want to start where you are known at first, because those online lenders are pretty flexible. They'll give you the line of credit, the emergency line of credit that you want, but they will charge you more in terms of APR. You have APRs that go all the way to 36%, 35.99%. So that's really a little problematic, okay? So when you think about universal credit, for instance, you are able to get things done a lot fast. And but universal credit actually charges high APRs, but they also charge origination fees. With universal credit, you are sure to get actually an emergency line of credit for low income. So that's really good from a flexibility point of view. You are pretty well served. What about Avant? Avant actually can also give you a line of credit that actually goes from $2,000 to $35,000. Avant actually gives you a loan, but also can really convert the loan into a line of credit. Avant wants you to have a minimum income of $14,400. Okay, so that's really good, and $14,400 per year, that equates to $1,200 gross income every single month. Okay, and what about Upgrade? Upgrade actually has a line of credit that goes from $1,000 all the way to $50,000, but they charge you actually 8% all the way to 36%. You have Achieve. Achieve has a similar setup. In other words, they're giving you $5,000 all the way to $50,000, and they are charging you maximum 36%. And finally, you have Best Egg. Best Egg actually is also a lender that usually can issue you a loan that you can that they can really tweak into an emergency line of credit for low income. And Best Egg wants you to have a minimum annual income of $3,500. So that's pretty flexible. So what are the alternatives here? If you're looking for an emergency line of credit for low income, if you want to get that, you have to really understand that in case you get denied, you also have the possibilities to get things done another way, okay? But don't think that you have no other choice if you get denied for an emergency line of credit for low income. No, you do have a lot of choices. So, for instance, you can really try government assistance. Maybe in your area, you can have assistance from the government, either the federal government or the state government. So you have some kind of relief at that level from the authorities. Okay, so look for federal and local programs designed to help individuals or families in need. There may be grants or lines of credit geared towards parents of small children or women entering the workforce for the first time. So a lot of help is available. You also have a cash advance apps. So if you're looking for an emergency line of credit for a low income and you don't get it, you can try a cash advance app. I've covered on this show before, actually, the best cash advance apps depending on your location. And these apps allow you to borrow against your next paycheck, and you'll receive the funds quickly. But you have to pay back the line of credit quickly too, or face sky high interest. You also have credit cards, okay? So you can take a cash advance from your credit card, but beware of secondary interest rates. They are higher for cash advances than regular purchases. You also have a payday line of credit. So, like cash advance apps, payday lines of credits offer funding based on your average paycheck. Interest rates are enormous, and it's very easy to get into a cycle of debts with those products. and you also can have a hardship line of credits, and those are designed for individuals facing unexpected financial hardships. So these lines of credits often come with more favorable terms and lower interest rates than payday lines of credits or even cash advances. It really depends on how, like, where you're looking at it. You're looking at it at as well. So the thing is, when it comes to getting an emergency line of credit for low income, you got to really ask yourself whether or not it is actually worth it in the first place. In other words, should you get a personal line of credit with no income or low income? It really depends. But one thing for sure, remember that it's not free money, right? You have to repay it. So be careful about getting a personal line of credit when you have no income or low income. It can be very tempting to grab that money because it is offered, but you have no way to pay back the line of credit. If you find yourself in that capacity, you could find yourself actually deeper in debt with interest piling up big time. Okay, and those that interest is not going to stop piling up. It is going to pile up and up and up. So, how much income do you need to get a line of credit? I said this before. Really, the minimum is $100 per month. You have to make a little bit of money to actually access money, right? It costs money to actually be funded. So you got to make at least $100 in income to actually qualify. And basically, the maximum to be considered low income is actually $1,000, okay, per month, okay. And so the typical interest rates for low income lines of credits actually goes from 10% all the way to 36%. 36%, by the way, is actually the minimum legal rate. Okay, and so it's not just about your low income. You have to care about. You have to care about your credit score too, because see, the thing is that there is a correlation between your ability to get approved, but also your credit score. So if you have a low credit score, but you have a high income, or vice versa, you're still finding yourself in a situation where you do not want to be in it. So if you have let's say a high income but low credit score, you will have a high interest rates. But if you have a let's say a great credit score but low income, you're not going to get a line of credit that high. You might be getting maybe 1,000 or 2,000 line of credit or 3,000. You're not getting that much because the lender is actually looking at your ability to repay whatever you tap into when you actually access the funds, right? So if you have no income or you have low income, there will be they'll be really like they'll be scared about how you are going to repay the loan. So as Coda, in today's conversation, I spoke to you about emergency line of credit, low income. I give you the takeaway, the hacks, the considerations, the process, the lenders, the alternatives, the Coda. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.